Hold on. We'll start with the intro as well.
Okay, let's start with intro.
Take two, as we like to say, and all along those lines. But definitely, there's a lot going on in the world, including places that you cannot travel to, and all along those lines. But we're going to get into some of the news, and then I will tell you about some of these places that you're not supposed to be traveling to, according to the State Department. But definitely, Canada and India are enmeshed in an unprecedented diplomatic fight, and definitely, apparently, Canada has the largest Sikh population outside of India. So that is something that is going on, and of course, there was that assassination that recently took on. And I'm also curious as to why a lot of folks from a Sikh background are coming to Canada. So I'm not thinking that that is similar to weather and climates, but I could be wrong and all in that space. But maybe when Sasha comes, he can tell me why he thinks there is a growing Sikh population in Canada. And apparently Trudeau, the leader of that particular country in Canada, has rejected India's denial of involvement in the assassination in Canada. And that's definitely something that is going on a global kind of way. And then in Armenia, and that's definitely over there in Eastern Europe as well, Armenian separatists and Karabakh are surrendering and agreeing to a ceasefire with Azerbaijan. So that is something else that we are seeing as we are seeing that is a conflict that is going on as well. And the Morocco earthquake survivors have taken stock of their losses, and aid workers are facing a huge challenge in that area. There is a definitely a perilous mountain path that is in the whole area and all in that space. And the AMDA emergency relief number 2 is taking place as well. So apparently they are definitely trying to send some aid and some help into that area also. But and also in the news, UK Prime Minister Sunak is weighing delaying diesel car ban and diluting the green agenda. Britain is set to roll back its climate pledges, and of course, that's enraging campaigners and auto groups. So definitely, we're going to see what happens when Rishi Sunak gives a net zero speech, as delays to key targets are expected. So it looks like he's going to be weakening the UK climate targets as the elections approach. And over there in the war between Russia and Ukraine, Biden is warning world leaders not to let Ukraine be carved up. He's also urging Trump to share his Ukraine peace plans, but says he won't give any territory to Russia. So Ukrainian and Russian officials are facing off as definitely Zelensky is continuing to try to win this war on his side and all along these lines. And as I was saying earlier, we had some glitches and all in that space. Definitely, we'll get to this whole notion of where to travel to and where not to travel to. But first, let me just tell you about something going on in Brazil. Brazil's president says Julian Assange it can't be punished for informing society. So the Amazon is speaking for itself. Brazilian President Lula puts climate and inequality at the center of his UN address. So there's going to be a Biden and Lula meeting that will be taking place in New York to discuss labor and the climate. And apparently, Lula also has a conversation with Zelensky while in New York City, despite their past differences and all in that space. And the UN chief is putting a spotlight on movers, excludes US and China at the climate summit. So leaders of the world's biggest polluting countries are skipping the UN climate summit. So definitely looks like, if you want to be out there polluting, that you don't want to be at the climate summit, apparently. So that's what's going on. And the UN chief is seeing a world becoming unhinged and a completely absent leadership. So definitely he's over there having some thoughts about not just leadership in the United States, but all around as he warns of great fracture. So I guess he's seeing that a lot of these leaders are fracturing their own countries and having conflicts with each other as well. So looks like King Charles III has begun his state visit with a wreath-laying ceremony in Paris. So Macron has pulled out all the stops for King Charles III's rescheduled state visit to France. So English cheese is on the menu at Versailles banquet for King Charles, and it looks like we're having a state visit in that area. But as I'm getting ready to get to places that you don't want to travel to, maybe Egypt's on that list because a French journalist was arrested for reporting on an Egypt spy operation. So journalist was detained, home searched over reporting on French intelligence, according to news outlets and all in that space. So France is accused of an attack on press freedom after the journalist was arrested. And of course, the various rights groups are making all kinds of yellings about that particular situation and all in that way. And speaking of government leaders meeting each other, apparently I thought they'd already met once before, but maybe no, that might have been one of the other leaders. But Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping are to meet in Beijing in October, according to some of the news sources that I am seeing and all in that space. So the Kremlin is saying Russia and China was edged closer to counter Washington's efforts to contain them. So maybe they're going to be an even stronger alliance, as definitely China is urging deeper trade ties with Russia, despite the rebuke that it is getting from the West. And as I was talking about before, and that's when we'll bring in Nick and whoever else wants to talk about it, apparently there's a lot of countries that you're not supposed to be visiting, according to the State Department and all along those lines. So definitely there are a number of some countries that they're saying don't travel to these countries if you're American, according to the U.S. government and all in that space. So President Biden has reiterated travel warnings to U.S. citizens on Monday after the release of the 5 American prisoners from Iran. So President Biden released a statement praising the return of the prisoners and thanking the partners at home and abroad whose efforts led to their release. However, he also reiterated a warning to American citizens about travel restrictions for the Middle Eastern country. I once more remind all Americans of the serious risk of traveling to Iran. Iran has been assigned the highest warning level due to the risk of kidnapping and the possibility of getting arrested and jailed. Exercise increased caution due to wrongful detentions, the State Department website says. There is now one U.S. national, Shahid Dalili, who the State Department claims is being wrongfully detained. All Americans should heed these words and have no expectations that their release can be secured if they do not, Biden said about the warning. The U.S. hasn't had diplomatic relations with Iran since 1980, after the Iranian takeover of the American embassy in November of 1979. So as I was telling folks, just so y'all can learn about how U.S. travel advisories are determined, travel advisories for American citizens are issued by the State Department in 4 levels, and an increase in crime, health warning, and civil unrest can cause the country's risk level to change. The advisories are Level 1, exercise normal precautions. Level 2, exercise increased cautions. Level 3, reconsider travel. Level 4, do not travel. What countries are level 4? In addition to Iran, there are currently 19 other countries that the State Department advises all American passport holders to avoid visiting. Why am I not surprised that this is the one that is at the top of the list? And by the way, I've got to find out if we have listeners in any of these countries, because I think we don't have a lot of listeners in the one that I'm going to mention first, according to Nick. But Russia, level 4, is a do not travel. The State Department has warned American citizens to avoid traveling to Russia due to the unpredictable consequences of the unprovoked full-scale invasion of Russia, as well as possible detention and harassment. The diplomatic relationship between the U.S. and Russia is at its lowest point in decades. Last week, the Kremlin expelled 2 American diplomats for keeping in contact with a Russian citizen who it believed was an informant for Washington. Niger, which is over there in Africa, is a level 4. Do not travel. American tourists should reconsider travel to Niger over crime, terrorism, and kidnapping, the State Department warns. A coup in August led to political chaos and protests across the capital. All American citizens were evacuated from the country after the French embassy in Niamey was attacked by protesters. With the ongoing efforts to overturn constitutional order, there may be increased demonstrations that can lead to civil unrest and government instability, the State Department warns. Another country in Africa, South Sudan, level 4, do not travel. Americans are cautioned by the State Department to avoid travel to South Sudan over risk of crime, kidnapping, and armed conflict. Foreign nationals have even been the victims of rape and sexual assault. Journalists have also been warned about reporting from South Sudan without obtaining the appropriate documentation. Without these documents, reporting is deemed illegal. Journalists regularly report being harassed in South Sudan, and many have been killed while covering the conflict, the State Department writes. Other countries listed as level 4, and then I'll bring in the panel, include Somalia, Mali, Central African Republic, Burkina Faso. I think we do have listeners in Burkina Faso, if I remember our list and everything. Haiti, Belarus, and I know there are listeners in Belarus, North Korea, Myanmar, Venezuela, Syria, Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, and of course, we know we have listeners in this country, Ukraine, Sudan, and Yemen. So those are countries that the State Department is saying, whatever you do, don't plan your vacations in those particular countries and all along those lines. So Nick, I'm bringing you in now that we got this thing going back and all along those lines. But the State Department has got all kinds of places that they don't want you to travel to and all those lists. I know you love to travel and all in that space. We're also going to bring in Sasha to hear more about the war in Ukraine and what else is going on. But are you rushing to get to any of these countries that I just listed?
Yeah, I know. I'm canceling some of my vacation plans, like to Russia, but I did find out through our partners in Vimeo, who give us the analytics on viewership around the world. Obviously, the big dominant viewership is the United States. Last year, the 2.3 million viewers, 2.2 million came from the U.S. So it's dominant. Now, when we look at Russia, I thought, well, we're getting nobody from Russia. We actually had 6,416 people from Russia view, and I'll have to find out why and how Russia, especially with Sasha's show, these people they're watching our show. They're watching your show. The Russians are watching you, Sasha. And Ukraine only pulled in 229. I'm pulling the analytics from our Vimeo partner that puts our analytics together. 229 from Ukraine in the last 365 days, but 6,000 viewers from Russia in the last 365 days. And then Belarus actually did have viewers also as well, not as much, but we did get some viewers from the country of Belarus. It was several hundred in Belarus. So my question to Sasha, I thought Russia, now, by the way, I can't find anything from China, nothing from North Korea, nothing from Iran, but 6,000 viewers from Russia. Sasha, you bash Russia all the time on the Ukraine show. Why are Russians watching?
I almost expected this because I just yesterday got a couple of hateful emails on YouTube. So now I understand what Russians are watching. For sure, they're watching our Ukrainian show. And because of my personal stance against Russia, which is understandable, almost like any normal people should be there. Of course, Russians, they could be some trolls involved as well. I'm not so sure. But anyway, I just got a couple of hateful messages on YouTube. There was very interesting moment in Zelensky's interview with Wolf Blitzer. What I noticed is that Zelensky said that Trump already several times spoke about that if he would become a president, he would get him and Putin in a room or whatever he would do, so the war would stop right away. So Zelensky asked why to wait until he'll become a president. He can do it now and just unveil his plan how to stop the war, and it would be appreciated. But I don't think that Trump is going to answer to Zelensky's invitation to unveil his plan. I don't think that he has a plan of any kind. And he's just talking about something, but he has no clue of what's going on. He's He's not a man who would, let's see if this is important question. So he would go and dig all the information about it on both sides and listen to some advisors or whoever. No, it's not Trump. That's not his way of doing business. His way of doing business is to say something to see if it works. Okay, then he will proceed further. Oh, no, forget about it. Oh, let's try this. Oh, that doesn't work. Oh, okay, no problem. I have another way of doing that. So this is it's very, how should I say, unsatisfactory situation.
Hey, Nick, just real, Nick, real quickly, do we have any leaders in, and definitely want to hear more about the Zelensky talk and everything. Do we have any listeners in India as well? Because I'm wondering, because we were talking about government, we were talking about government recently and everything, and even the way that we should do in our United States with representation, because, you know, we definitely say representation matters and everything. And I'd love to hear Jacoby's thoughts about this as well. But apparently India has come up with a unique idea. They've got a bill out, and India's Sonia Gandhi is supporting the bill to reserve a third of the parliament seats for women. So I was just wondering, do we need to do something like this where we reserve a certain amount of seats for women, a certain amount of seats for minorities, a certain amount of seats for whomever? But apparently there is a quota that they are looking at putting in India, where a third of the seats in their legislature will be reserved for women.
Yeah, we had last 365 days, 2,102 viewers from India. Now, remember, I'm getting the analytics from Vimeo. Mm-hmm. Not all the analytics, they collect all of our analytics. So right. Things that are broadcast on some of our distribution partners don't show up on Vimeo. But Vimeo actually gives us our best analytics because they aggregate and they show the viewership around the world on the Pod TV network. And last 365 days, we received 2,392,000 views, with the dominant part being the United States, 2.3 million, basically in the United States. And the number two country, who's been number two for a long time, is Brazil. Now, why Brazil watches our content is beyond, I can never be able to figure it out. But they sit in the number two position for a long time. Then Mexico, Canada, United Kingdom round out the top five. Italy, Japan, Argentina, Colombia, oddly enough, and Chile ran out the next one. Then Saudi Arabia, India, Australia, Germany, New Zealand, Turkey, Ireland, Philippines, Costa Rica, France, Taiwan, Netherlands.
I'm not surprised by the Latin American countries. We have a very popular show, Que Pasa Mujer, that is based on the Latin American culture, and they do a good job of advertising to some of their family and friends and some of the people that are interested in those conversations. And there are other shows that touch on it as well. So definitely we have a
it's interesting to also see the bottom. Okay, here are the bottom five. Zambia, total views 1. Okay, I mean, you know, and some of it could deal with internet connection. In other words, some of these countries, they just don't have great internet connection, and so to watch our shows could be next to impossible. Liberia 4, and Nepal, even though we have a guy who's on from Nepal all the time, Shambhu, only had 27 views. But Nepal also traditionally does not have good internet. So as you don't have good internet, we tend to get fewer views. Lesotho only had 1. Mako had 35. Now that is a small country, but 35 isn't bad. Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan 4. St. Vincent and the Grenadines 4. Uzbekistan, which is in the middle of bloody nowhere, 11. And then you go to Belize, 218, Oman 4, St. Lucia. Now, St. Lucia is a small island in the Caribbean. Total views 9. Mozambique 2, Kuwait 4, Tajikistan 2, Luxembourg though 275. So it's very interesting to see the viewership around the world because it really does vary, and a lot of it is on. I think it deals with internet connection, Mark, because remember we were broadcasting the show out of Nigeria?
Yeah.
The problem was the internet connection. In other words, in Nigeria being pretty poor, he had to upgrade his internet. Burkina Faso, you're right, we do get viewers 5, not much. So I'm pulling from the bottom of the deck now. In other words, it's close to the top of the deck. So at the bottom of the deck, it's not very much. But noticeably absent, now I don't know if it's us or Vimeo, is mainland China, 0, and Iran, 0, which doesn't surprise me. North Korea, 0. They don't even show up here, let alone views. So I don't know if now the only way you get into China is we've got a backdoor in through Facebook into China. That's the only way you can get in to get our content, and it's pretty tough to do. But if any of the producers want their content shown in mainland China, you have to join the group Understanding China through Facebook and then broadcast through Facebook. The problem
either that or do shows on gaming, because I know that there's an active gaming society in China, so maybe we got to bring back the Gamers Den and get that show running, because that way the Chinese gaming community might actually start picking up and all in that space.
Well, I'm also telling you though that Facebook has banned me twice, shut me down twice. So Facebook is like working with the communist countries here in the United States, so they're next to impossible to work with. But they if you can work with them, you can backdoor into China. So you got two really impossible groups to work with: Facebook in the United States, controlled by a communist Mark Zuckerberg, and then you have China itself, controlled by the CCP. So you got like two impossible organizations to get into.
We'll just have to try to break into those markets and everything. I don't know, Jacoby, what did you think about this notion of reserves? Coming back to the news for a second, and I did have a question for Sasha about India as well, but I'll get to that in a minute. But what do you think about this notion of having a large population of women or any other group as a designated block? Because I know we have blocks. We have like the black vote, the black congressman block. There are some other blocks that exist within Congress, but this sounds like a attempt to have a designated amount. It's almost like affirmative action in India, where they're saying a third of the seats need to be held by women. So this is actually a bill that is going through in India. So do you think something like that could work here, where we say that a third have to be from the rural area, or a third have to be from one group or another, or one part of society or another? Could it work in the United States, or we don't need to borrow from India?
So you're asking me?
Yeah, we're putting you on the spot, Jacoby. You got it.
No, hold on. I'm gonna try and get this all out. So you're asking me if a bill that was trying to push representation by having some type of equality or equity base would work in the states where they just removed affirmative action and are fighting against DEI. So just point put it out there. I mean,
point taken.
Could it work? I mean, yeah, sure, it could work. I mean, hey, it'd be good to have something to push equity and equality, but hey, we in the States are fighting against equity and equality. We in the States are against affirmative action for some reason.
Good morning, everybody.
Oh, he's dressed up.
He's joining us.
Professional.
Hey,
professional.
No problem, Steve. Steve, we were actually talking about your country and I have two questions. I was getting ready to ask one to Sasha as well. But the question I was raising is, apparently in India there is a bill to have a third of the seats in parliament be seats that women hold. So I was just seeing if this would work in the United States. Jacoby is like, we're fighting against all these other kinds of affirmative action, so there's no way in heck that it would work and everything. But I just wondered if you had been reading up on this notion and this idea that apparently India's Sonia Gandhi is very big on, because she's saying that she's supporting the bill to reserve a third of the parliament seats for women. So they're saying a third of the seats would go to women, because I think they've got the same issue that a lot of countries have, which is that it is mostly men that are governing, and there is not enough representation. But they've came up with somewhat of a solution.
I don't know much about that. I'm sorry I'm late, guys. I came in earlier and I had a hard time getting here at 10, but I'll open up on Friday to wrap up the week as the host of the show. But I waited and I couldn't get in, so I came back. So you must have seen me. But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of changes in India, but I was gonna, as I update, as I do my updates around the world. I mean, right now there's connections between American and Canadian intelligence that India was involved with an assassination of an Indian national, which is kind of interesting. And I don't really know much about that. I mean, we are seeing women's role in India change much more. You're seeing a lot more of the Western cultures and values, a lot more working women. Divorce rates are up. The extended family, they're not living in the unit as much. like in the family, extended family, everyone living in one house. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I think that, and also the name of India may change to Bharat, which is the original name before Britain took over and gave it the name India. So I don't know whether I'm going to be going to the ambassador's residence on the 30th of September for a reception where we're going to be hearing about the India relationship. Real quickly before I pass it back to you, Mark, just wanted to go over a couple things in the world. Give me 1 second. There was something going on in some part of the world that I don't really know much about. There's a truce. Do you know anything about that?
Are you talking
Was that
about Armenia and Azerbaijan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Armenia and Azerbaijan.
We actually had an expert on. I can dig him up again, and professor in Southern California who is Armenian, and there's been border disputes for a long time. And in the middle of Azerbaijan, completely surrounded, is basically part of the country of Armenia, which is
Oh yeah, I got it. Nagorno-Karabakh.
Yeah.
Nagorno-Karabakh.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
there's a
anyway,
ceasefire. Yeah, and so and then
Armenia is a little upset with Russia because Russia is spending too much time with Ukraine. Supposedly, they're supposed to defend Armenia, but they just don't see Russia being a very good supportive partner in that. Anyway, Azerbaijan took advantage of it and decided to attack Armenia, and I think Armenia just basically said, "Folded." I think that's what happened, where they entered into some sort of truce. But the geographical boundaries over there are weird, and the wars between the Azerbaijanians and the Armenians date back to the turn of the other millennia, literally. I mean, the weird thing about some parts of the world, Steve, is these people literally are fighting for thousands of years. They just can't get over fighting, but go on.
In any case, the last war was fought there 3 years ago. And because Azerbaijani army is way much stronger than Armenian, and if we are talking from the position of real politics, like Professor John Meyershammer, he's convincing that because Russia is so much stronger than Ukraine, Ukraine never dare to fight Russia. They have to be very nice, polite, submissive, say, what would you like us to do? Or would you like us to jump? Yes. How high? Yes. So this is real politics. Now, same thing applies to Azerbaijan, Armenia. Okay, the thing is that so-called Nagorno-Karabakh, or Azerbaijanis called it Karabakh, simple, because Nagorno is a Russian word, and they don't want it there. So it's Karabakh. Karabakh is a part of Azerbaijan, always was, except that it was mainly populated by Armenians. And because of the Russian support, they've arranged some kind of a landline to Armenia, so Karabakh could have been supplied back and forth from Armenia and so on. However, result of the war ended 3 years ago. Mind you, it was complete victory of Azerbaijan because Turkey is on the side of Azerbaijan, and apparently Turkish and Azerbaijani army, it's one whole unit. They're fighting together using the same strategy. Turkey is a member of NATO, so they have perfect weapons and so on. However, Armenia relied a lot on Russian help, because Armenia is a Christian country, unlike Azerbaijan, which is Muslim. So Armenia was relying on Russia, and of course, Russia, of course, before the Ukrainian war, Russia was capable to help Armenians, although they were trying to be very careful because potentially it could be confrontation against Azerbaijani and Turkey's armies. So Russians wanted to avoid it, but they supported Armenia. Now, apparently, there were some Russian peacekeepers in Karabakh. When the Azerbaijani attack started, they all dropped and just ran, and they didn't fulfill their functions. So Armenia now is complaining that Russia is not supporting them, that also there is an organization in Russian, it's ODKB, which unites so-called stans like Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and all these countries, and Russia and Armenia, believe it or not. Belarus probably is there, to have NATO-like agreement. Obviously, it doesn't work because Russia, who initiated this organization, is incapable now of doing any of its duties, perceived or real, or nobody cares anymore. So now Armenia is facing a dilemma: what to do. Continue to fight. Now there is uprising in Armenia. Some people are uprising against the president, saying that he's a traitor, that he gave in to Uzbekistan, whether it's right or wrong. But the uprising is still going on. Azerbaijan completely encircled Karabakh, cut it off any supplies from Armenia, and ask all its residents to, those who want to stay, no problem. There are 30,000 Armenians live in Azerbaijan, and they have no problems from what I hear. In reality, I'm not so sure. But at least what I hear is they have no problems there. So Karabakh, a population who wants to stay in Karabakh, but become citizens of Azerbaijan, no problem. Those who don't want to stay, you're free. You can go to Armenia and live there. So one way or another, that's part of Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan must fulfill its obligation to protect its territory. Just dry and simple.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, just really quickly and everything, and I'm just curious, this is actually for you. I did not realize that this was a religion that is as big and popular as apparently it is. But apparently the Sikhs, which is a religion that comes out of India, is the world's 5th largest religion, which I did not realize, but apparently there are 25 to 30 million followers of Sikhism. And I know that what I noticed is that there are some countries, including Canada, that have a relatively large population, which is how this whole conversation came up between India and Canada. So I was just wondering, one, why a number of folks were moving to Canada and Australia that are of the Sikh background. I imagine it's to escape some of the kind of repression that they're getting from their own country and everything. But I did see that Canada had a large population. When I looked at Wikipedia, it was something like 771,790, and that is much smaller than what exists in India, which has got like millions of followers and everything. But they are the first largest group outside of India, followed by England, Italy, Australia, and the United States. And apparently a group that Shaquille talks about a lot when he is here and everything has been part of this conversation as well, that being the Five Eyes countries. Because I know that Shaquille oftentimes when he's here talks about the Five Eyes countries, and apparently their intelligence together is how a lot of this investigation was taking place and all in that space. So I did know that he oftentimes talks about that alliance that exists between those Five Eyes countries. I know it's Australia, England, United States, and I'm forgetting the other two eyes and everything, but they
Canada,
are
Australia.
Thank you. And they are definitely part of the investigation that is going on in this situation that was taking place and everything. But
well, I think it's a little bit beyond investigation, because Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau openly accused India and its prime minister of killing the leader of Sikh in Canada. Now, he was shot dead outside a Sikh temple in Surrey, British Columbia.
Yeah, we
now,
don't know.
Who was Hardeep Singh Nijjar? That's his name. He was campaigned for an independent Sikh nation known as Khalistan, to be carved out of India's Punjab state. He was wanted by Indian authorities and had been designated as a terrorist in July of 2020. He had been warned by Canada's spy agency about threats against him, according to the World Sikh Organization of Canada, which alleged he was assassinated in a targeted shooting. So this is a nature, that's what behind the conflict between, it's now a diplomatic conflict between Canada and India, quite well publicized, and other countries, especially Five Eyes, as you say, probably will have to take stand on that.
Yeah. Hey, Sasha, what is Canada a popular destination in your mind for the Sikh population and everything? Do you have any ideas? Because that's what I was going to ask you, is if you have any idea
Guys, I
why
gotta run, but
Canada
I'll
is.
see you on Friday. I'll see you on Friday, okay? And we'll
Thank you,
talk,
Steve.
continue the
Yeah.
conversation.
Sure. Sorry, Mark, what's your question?
I was saying, that do you have any ideas of what it is about Canada that is appealing to the Sikh population? Why Canada is the leading country that the Sikhs are coming to, from what you've heard?
I wish somebody else with more information would deal with that. In my opinion, from what I see, is that they are treated quite well in Canada. They don't have any special privileges. I don't think so. But there are areas in Toronto, for example, Brampton, which is north east of Toronto. There is predominantly, I wouldn't call it Sikh population. It's mostly Indian, Sikh, Pakistani people that, but I never heard about mass confrontations between these people in Canada, in Toronto area. Never heard about that. So they're living in relatively peaceful coexistence, and therefore I cannot tell you anything. And this Sikh leader, he was killed in Surrey, in British Columbia, as we just
Yeah,
discussed.
I know where Surrey is. Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
the thing is, it's right outside of Vancouver.
Yeah.
So I used to go up there, but I can see where the problem lies. In other words, like I said, the U.S. we went to Pakistan and killed Osama bin Laden. So it's not unusual for this to take place. It'll be a little dust up, and then probably will be over with. In other words, it's going to go outside the news. Now, we do have something that's big in the United States. I don't know if you follow this, Sasha, the UAW strike.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
My purchase of Ford stock has been put on hold, and General Motors stock, because this could actually affect negatively the auto industry in the Midwest. And what gets me is how stratified labor and management and stockholders just don't get along in the Midwest. The reason why people went to Seattle, Washington, San Francisco to establish the companies, and the reason why these companies are now the biggest in the world, and I'm talking Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, is because if you have to deal with I call it the Midwest mentality, you'll never go anywhere. Same within the Northeast, forget it. And unfortunately, same in the South, because they tend to say, well, this is the way we always do it. And what happens is labor and management sit on opposite sides of the street. And what was brilliant about Bill Gates was he offered a stock option program for all his employees. And frankly, a lot of them I'd met when I lived in Seattle who became millionaires off their stock option program. They got what they call a piece of the action. In the mighty Midwest, you don't get a piece of the action. You're treated like dung. You're either management or you're an employee, and that's it. And so they're getting basically they're just desserts right now. I hope the whole industry just tanks, goes under, and they get what they want. Now, who's benefiting? Tesla. Now, Tesla actually pays less dollar rate. It's like $44 an hour, where General Motors pays $66 an hour. Tesla has no union, but General Motors does. How do they get away with it still boggles my mind. But Tesla come out the big winner because Elon Musk was smart enough to get the government to pay, which I totally disagree with. The government charging stations. The government should have paid for 0 charging stations. It's not the U.S. government's job to fund Elon Musk's dream. But Elon's smart. He goes to Washington, sprinkles fairy dust. You know what that is? Money on the congressman, and they buy into his garbage. Seriously.
Hey,
Uh,
Nick,
let's
Nick,
face
Nick,
it,
Nick, speaking of the fairy dust,
fairy dust works.
speaking of fairy dust, there's two things going on that I'd love to hear
Fairy
both
dust.
you and Jacoby's thoughts about. I'm really curious about Jacoby's thought about the second one I'm getting to mention, but I'll get to the first one first. But apparently, United is the latest airline to confirm finding fake parts in plane engines as
Yeah, I
the
saw
supplier scandal is growing. So apparently, if you're flying in a plane, might be flying in a plane that is fully functional in terms of its parts and all in that space. But definitely that is a new scandal.
Problem solved. I don't fly United. I mean, the thing is, United. No, I'm seriously. I strike certain airlines off the list. United is one of them. Fly Delta.
Speaking of things that you might strike, because you mentioned it before and everything, and this is where I was going to get to Jatopia and everything, but there is a UN chief that has said he is terrified of AI becoming a monster of hate and lies because tech firms care more about engagement than human rights. So the proliferation of hate and lies on digital platforms and the threat that artificial intelligence can become an uncontrolled monster demand coordinated global action. Starting with the code of conduct. Go a second. They said they want a code of conduct for governments, tech companies, and advertisers that promote truth and protect human rights. That's what the UN chief Antonio Guterres said on Monday. He said he plans to appoint gotta love these boards, a scientific advisory board in a few days and an advisory board on artificial intelligence in September to prepare initiatives that the UN can take. So apparently they're going to try to put some sort of regulation on AI and everything. He expressed hope that
it's just the next cryptocurrency. They're so full of it. But now I'm gonna do a negative shout out to hotels.com. let me tell you about what's happening here. Okay. Hotels.com, and it's out of Seattle, it's part of Expedia, decide in their infinite wisdom that computer bots are going to handle everything from consumer complaints to everything, okay? I've had a problem now for several months with Hotels.com getting reimbursed on a hotel room that I reserved. When I showed up, the hotel was closed. Okay, but you don't ever get to talk to a person, you get to talk to bots. The bots don't understand, they literally don't, that you showed up to a room you paid for, the hotel is closed, you get a refund. So finally, after, and by the way, anybody on listening, go ahead and try to talk to a person at hotels.com. You won't find a person because there are no persons because they believe in this fairy dust of artificial intelligence.
See, the irony, the whole irony of your whole complaint.
Solution solved. I just won't use hotels.com anymore.
But hold on a second. Jacoby, I want to get to you and everything.
Talking to anybody, but
hold on a second. Jacoby, I definitely want to get to you. Hold on a second, Nick. I'm going to get to Jacoby. But one thing that I'm going to add is that I just was looking up something. I forgot what it was on yesterday and everything. And it was interesting that it gave a warning. You know how sometimes you get those warnings that about is the veracity of something along those lines. And the warning was that the article had been created by AI and let's say Wikipedia, whatever the other source was and everything. So it was letting you know that part of what you were reading was created by AI. And I had never seen that warning before. I'm not saying it's not been out there before, but that was the first time that I saw that warning that it literally said.
Come on, Mark. I mean, the thing is, this is the most overblown thing since climate change. Matter of fact, climate change is more real than artificial intelligence is, So, and hotels.com is a poster child for a group in Seattle, Washington, who should have known better that their artificial intelligence system does not work. So yours truly literally spends tens of thousands, not thousands, tens of thousands on hotel bills. Now I'm going to be spending zero with hotels.com.
The irony
there's
here.
Nobody to talk to.
The irony here.
Let's hear the irony according to the
irony of the whole complaint.
What?
But the irony of your whole complaint is about AI. You're complaining about bots. Bots are AI. And the thing is, that is what is coming. It's not going to stop. More people are
but it's not here. It's a bloody joke, Jatovi. I mean, it's not even close to being here. They can play chess. Chess is confined to a 64 square board.
But even chess, if you're going to play chess, you can't
AI doesn't understand humans.
People online to play chess against. So then you got to play against what? The computer, AI.
So
AI is here to stay.
Hey,
And that's,
hey, look, I know you all love Star Trek, and you think that Star Trek is real, but I hate to tell you it isn't. And I hate
I hate to tell you that
that
it's
all those
on the
little worlds
way.
that they go through and all those little
As
beds
much
on those planets, they haven't found one. They haven't found one, Jacoby. There is no people on any of
So
these
you know the
ships.
wild thing about
What, you
this is
wanna
cool, this is cool.
see
This is gonna
that?
blow. This is the blow your mind part. This is the blow your mind part. Now,
Read what you want.
AI and
Dangerous
everything that is all real. That's on the way, and we're still building to it. The it's just as real as global
You spend
global
way too
warming and
much
climate
time
change.
with video games.
And then
you think
that
they're
is
real.
what people are fighting against with UAW and so on and so forth. That's part of that fight. But the blow your mind part in terms of space, in terms of not finding things, even though that they found potential water on Mars, or not water itself, but the remnants of water on Mars. Same thing. They found potential stuff on the moon, but they've also listed that they found potential on a distant planet in the Goldilocks zone in a universal way, or a galaxy away. They found traces of the elements of life already. That's using the James Webb Telescope. But then the crazy part, think about this. And this is why it's so tough and so crazy trying to find life. Say you and Mark are 100 feet away, or on a football field. You and Mark are on a football field standing 20 yards away from each other. You throw a ball and then walk. By the time the ball gets to you, wherever Mark is, he's not where he was. So he's in a completely new place. So think about it. When they say this is 1 billion or 1 million light years away, right? This planet is about 2-3 million light years away. So it takes light millions of years to get to us. So if you throw a ball and it's traveling for 1 million years, by the time it gets to its destination, you're dead and gone, and we're on a whole separate generation.
You made my case for me.
The only person they would know is the person that they threw the ball.
Jacoby, you made my case for me. It's 1 million light years away. AI is 1 million light years away.
No.
You think AI is here? It's not here. It's 1 million light years away.
You're not even.
You go look up in the stars in the sky. They're like, the closest one is 4.3.
Yep.
4.
And that's
3
4.3
million light years
million.
away.
You're seeing at
And AI is
4.3 million light years from
Why are
the
they
past.
Nick,
So
hold on a second.
everything
Nick,
you see
hold
is
on a second.
in the
Nick, do
past.
you have
What is going on right
Nick,
now?
no, Nick, hold on a second. I'm gonna be very practical here.
Guys,
Nick, hold on a second. Do you have a
AI is
microwave?
coming to
Do
get
you have a
you.
microwave? Nick,
But
do
I
you have a
will get-
microwave in your house?
Yeah, I got a microwave in my house.
And do you have a refrigerator in your house?
Yeah, and
Do you have a washing
talk to me and
machine
tell
in
me
your
when to
house?
wake up or go to
Do you have a
bed.
washing machine in your house?
Yeah, I got all that stuff. Sure.
And most of those things are controlled by computers, and that is part of AI. Am I not correct, Jacoby?
That's
yeah,
correct.
at a very
But
basic
then-
level.
and think about this.
AI is
Think
this
about how crazy
huge
this is.
thing that it's going to take over the world.
So,
and they're going to tell you what to do. And Terminator is here. Come
all
on,
that
it's
stuff is
not
coming. I
here.
hate to say it. It
It's
is.
not going to happen during our
It
lifetime.
is.
And Jacoby,
We
I'm
have-
sorry, you're not going to be flying to Alpha Centauri during your lifetime.
That
Jacoby, you
Alpha
will be
Centauri
dead.
that's
before you
years
get
away,
to
because
this
that's dealing
another
with jet
planet.
propulsion. We
Forget
don't
it.
have the technology to get the
We
propulsion
don't.
correct.
And it's not going to
That is
happen.
different.
All the
But
people
in
here
terms of AI
listening,
itself,
it ain't
that
gonna
AI is here. That AI is not
Ain't
going
gonna
anywhere.
not
within the
during our
next-
lifetime.
Oh, and this is crazy. Think about it this way too. So I just saw it was a science thing that I was looking at in terms of how
Science fiction.
the change is
creatures.
how things are changing so fast.
Not
The
just
chariot
the
itself
little
was
creature.
one of the things that was used as the best mode of transportation. That was ended about 300-400 years ago, right? But no, actually, yeah. So then it went to the horse and buggy, which is the same thing as a chariot. When did that end? That didn't end, but about 100 years ago when Ford brought in the Model T. So then within the Model T, which jumping about 66 years, we now have self-driving cars. So the pace of technology is really wild. Just to think about the amount of things. Just 20 years ago, this phone could not exist. But now this
And it
phone
wasn't a, and
exists,
it
and
wasn't a
this
mini
phone,
computer 20 years ago.
yeah. So
Whoa.
so all these things, the way it's going and the trajectory, because now we're
And
looking at
you still will not be visiting a planet during your
No, that's-
lifetime, Jacob.
that's
You just said
all
that's, you just said
propulsion
that that's
oriented.
a way,
That's a
that's
different
that's a
thing.
ways away.
Minor
It's like, hey, hold on a
improvements in
second.
technology
Hold on a second.
doesn't mean
Technology, no. So
this
you're
is
talking
gonna happen.
technology
it
isn't all
doesn't mean
balled
that
up in
somebody still
propulsion.
has to answer the phone at hotels.com. I'm
No.
sorry, guys.
No, there should
Don't
be, there
have
should be
to.
customer
You
service, and
need
there's not
That's
customer
AI.
service. That I
the
think
phone.
everybody agrees with
That's
you.
AI.
Because there is
Everything
an
that
issue with
flows
customer
will
service,
stop
but
using your
there is
service.
definitely an issue
Nope,
with customer
that's
service. But I
AI.
don't think
That's all
anybody
AI.
Somebody
denies
has
that. But
to
part of that is that we have
Every
turned it
phone.
over to AI.
Oh.
And I think the point that Jacoby is making is that we have turned it over to AI, and it's AI that is usually answering the phone
If
instead
you
of an actual
call
person.
any company, the first thing you're
Okay,
getting
but
is an
this
automated
totally
service.
wrong because AI is not here. And no, I don't get my next
Every
flight to Alpha Centauri
the
on
the
Delta.
majority
Okay.
AI and jet propulsion, two completely different technologies, and they're not working.
Okay,
You
yeah,
can use
right.
AI
And
to
what I'm
improve jet
demonstrating to
technology.
you, Jacoby, and hotels.com is demonstrating to the world, their AI system does not work.
If you
Like
call Verbo, if you call
failure. All
if
right.
you call
But just because you have AI doesn't mean it's
you
successful.
call
Failure.
Hey,
Delta,
hold on a second.
you
We can go a little
call
bit over because we
Cruise
started a little
Line,
bit
they're
late.
all
But hold
AI.
on a second. Just tell me, before we get off of the AI, I did have a quick question, and this was actually for Sasha, and then I got an investment question because he got his investment show in an hour, and we can go over a few more minutes because we started late. But Sasha, this UN person, and I know that you and Shaquille have sometimes gone against the UN, is talking about the world becoming unhinged. Global tensions are rising, global challenges are mounting, and we seem incapable of coming together to respond, is what Guterres told the people who run the world's nations. He said the United Nations and the ways that countries cooperate must evolve to meet the era. The world has changed. Our institutions have not. We cannot effectively address problems as they are if institutions don't reflect the world as it is. Instead of solving problems, they risk becoming part of the problems. And he's talking about this kind of polarity that is existing in the world and everything. So I was just wondering, should the UN be deepen into this? And do you think that we can ever find some unity in the world? Because he's saying that there's definitely all these issues that are going on and that the world is becoming unhinged and is completely absent leadership. So he's also kind of cracking on the leadership, not just in the United States, but around the world. He says we seem to be incapable of coming together to respond. So does he have a valid point? Or are we
Just turn it over to AI, right, Jacoby? Turn it over to AI. The United
AI
Nations
has already
run by
given me
a
10
bot.
answers of ways to improve jet propulsion for you if you want to know those.
The United Nations will be run by a bot, according to
Hey, we
Jacoby.
can ask ChatGPT that.
There we go. We have Chat Shasa. Chat.
Okay. Artificial intelligence, it's a very generic term for whatever modern there is or so on, because there are so many ways so-called artificial intelligence could be used, and this is upon the companies which are in specific businesses which are developing artificial intelligence on their own for their own use, proprietary use. Of course, it doesn't touch companies like hotels.com. But Nico, everything what you describe, I knew that 10 years ago when I also had similar problem, and that's our business model. As a business model, it requires very little maintenance. And 10 years ago, nobody thought about artificial intelligence, but it was there. It was there 20 years ago and 50 years ago, by the way, too. So their business model is to run it as inexpensively as possible, which means no human interaction, whether formed by anything else. And they realize that sometimes here and there they will lose few customers like you and me, but it doesn't matter. They will get through advertising and so on. They will get 500 new users, and half of them will drop hotels.com anyway. So they will go and they will get 1,000 new users. That's how it all works. And this is probably a very justifiable business model. About United Nations, anything, whatever requires interactions between human beings and especially nations and governments, artificial intelligence is completely useless tool. because they cannot obviously do nothing about that, period. And then in the next 337 years, they will not be able to do anything to be noticeable.
You heard what the man said, Jatovi. Useless tool, your artificial intelligence.
Incorrect.
Hold on.
Even they're using AI in stocks now.
Hey,
People are
not
buying
even a
stocks
tool,
using
Jatovi,
AI.
a useless tool.
It is
AI.
one of the most powerful tools out there, and it is only
One of the
getting
most
more powerful.
useless tools out there. AI.
Speaking of tools and everything,
According to
apparently there.
Scott.
Hold on a second. Speaking of tools, apparently an artist has. You're gonna love this one, Nick. Has been ordered to pay a museum back $77,000 after he submitted 2 blank canvases under the title "Take the Money and Run." So I guess his notion of what art was and what the other people's notion of art was not the same, because he was ordered to pay the museum back $77,000 because I guess he just walked in there with those 2 canvases and called it art and everything. So.
You got to give him some credit on that one.
About artificial intelligence concerning stock picking, I will talk a lot about it later on today at 1 o'clock on the investment show. And I will show you that the use of artificial intelligence just makes not so easy problem even way much more complicated. And there are now several artificial intelligence devices fighting the devices on the other side, which means, for example, they're learning how to read charts. So here is the formation, the double top formation, the double bottom formations and all that stuff. It's been known for decades in stock investing or so on. So of course, artificial intelligence are very good at that, but the same artificial intelligence, they're now so-called painting the tape to dupe the other devices to believe in this so-called useful and winning formation, and it's a trap. Actually, they're painting you the right formation, so you're going all the way in, and all of a sudden stock drops 20% in a day because they duped all these artificial intelligence devices. Welcome to the new brave world.
Well, speaking of new brave world and everything, Sasha, and maybe you can talk about this on a second, Jacoby, and I do want you to back up and everything on your points and everything. But speaking of artificial intelligence and even just intelligence in general, and maybe you can talk about it on your investment show. But apparently there is an Italian island that exists and everything. The island is called Olele, and they will literally pay for you to pay your rent if you relocate to their village. All you need to do is share some career advice. So apparently that's all you got to do is go there and share some career advice, and they will pay your rent and all along those lines. So is this something that you think other countries can do, is possibly get you? Because I know there were some African countries that were trying to get you to come to their different countries and to help them build, but apparently they're going to pay your rent if you'll relocate and just share a little bit about yourself. So I'm wondering if anybody here is going to be heading into Italy, because apparently it's stuck up in the middle of Sardinia. So Nick, you've been to Italy a couple of times. It looks like it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I just don't enjoy living in the middle of nowhere. And even Alaska gives an Alaska oil dividend if you want to live there. And some cities and states will actually give you money to move into their states and city, provided you bring jobs to the table. So there are things out there, but as you get older and wealthier, you also get lazier. And so you just go, why should I bother? So it's a good offer, but for a lot of people, I'm out. Let's put it that way. I am interested in artificial intelligence and stocks, because I've seen people that try to sell these programs to other people. And Sasha, it's a pretty big market. Not doing it yourself.
I have another story from 2 weeks ago that involved AI as well. But apparently there was a person that said that their rent was due on a day toward the end of last month, and they were $200 short. So one of the people, I guess, went ahead and sued OpenAI and speaks about how desperate they felt and everything. So definitely looks like they might have been having some conversations with AI and decided to sue AI. So is it possible that we could be seeing some more suits around AI as well? So definitely that is what's going on. Maybe people will be suing AI.
Yeah, but doesn't necessarily they're going to win anything. Just because you sue doesn't mean you're going to win. It's a big gap between I filed a complaint, I collected. There's even stats on that even if you did get a judgment, do you know there's a big percentage of judgments that are not collected? So it's a lot harder than you think. In other words, people
Well,
go,
here's the
"Oh, I see. So
here's
what?"
the exact article. There was an artist, and I'll find the artist's name and everything. Kelly McKern. She was a watercolor painter and everything, and she definitely goes by those different pronouns. And she noticed that she saw some images eerily similar to her own distinctive style that were apparently generated by entering their name into an AI engine. The Nashville-based McKernan creates both fine art and digital illustrations. Soon learned that companies were feeding artwork into AI systems used to train image generators, something that once sounded like a weird sci-fi movie, but now threatens the livelihood of artists worldwide. People were tagging me on Twitter, and I was from, hey, this makes me uncomfortable. I didn't give my consent for my name or my work to be used this way, the artist said in a recent interview. I even reached out to some of those companies to say, hey, little artist here, I know you're not thinking of me at all, but it would be really cool if you didn't use my work like this. And crickets, absolutely nothing. Kind of to your point, Nick. McKernan is now one of 3 artists who are seeking to protect their copyrights and careers by suing makers of AI tools that can generate new imagery on command. So the decision is actually in front of a San Francisco federal judge and everything. So, and her words is, we're David against Goliath here. At the end of the day, someone's profiting from my work. I had rent due yesterday, and I'm $200 short. That's how desperate things are right now, and it just doesn't feel right. So, what are our thoughts about folks like this that might be having their AI, their images actually used by AI, and they're not getting any compensation?
They may end up getting compensation. I mean, that's a notorious suit. It seems to me. I mean, I haven't read all the facts on that, but come on. You know, name, image, and likeness is your property, and so if somebody takes your property, you know, you have a right to sue, and you have a good chance of collecting. So AI can certainly overstep their bounds. Like I said, it's not the panacea people think. It's not the dreamland that Jacoby goes into when he watches
yet.
Star Wars and
It
Star Trek. Maybe you should go on the Angry Geek show and Comic Con, you know, because all that's fantasy. The reality, it isn't here. It's stuck It's stuck like the
AI can pass the bar exam.
Russia, you know, and it's moving slow. Everybody likes it to move fast. It's like cryptocurrency was a couple of years ago. Oh, cryptocurrency and blockchain, it's going to take over the world. Well, let me tell you something. It not only did it take over the world, it went down the toilet. And so
you say blockchain is going down the toilet, but one of our other founders has actually been promoting blockchain.
It'll be gone. It'll be gone faster than COVID-19.
That's ridiculous because, again, technology is always improving.
Technology moves slow.
No, technology does not move slow. Technology moves fast.
No, it moves slow.
Technology moves.
You know, you spend too much time in the den. Excuse me, the gamers.
So, you know, the iPhone 15
everything moves fast. In the real world,
you know, the iPhone 15 that just got released, or the iWatch that just got released. That technology is technology years past. Technology is moving very fast.
Hotels.com answer the phone,
especially when quantum computing.
Oh, by the way, not only don't answer the phone, they don't even have a phone. They think they're so smart.
That's the normal right now. It's cheaper,
smart, but people will not use their service. And then see how smart you are. I'm going to
every company has AI. Every company is doing it because it's cheaper. It is cheaper to do that.
Losing customers is real cheap, isn't it, Jacoby?
Hey, that's
when they say they're not going to be the only customers. There's a lot of people
just really quickly, hold on a second, because they did say that AI is almost overnight $1 billion industry, and what this lady said is they just took our work and suddenly we're seeing our names being used thousands of times, even hundreds of thousands of times. So are we going to have some regulation within AI as well? Because I do see this lady's concern.
Yes. No. They don't need regulations
in AI.
It's a waste of time. It's meaningless. It doesn't do anything anyway.
Incorrect.
You know? There's
AI has been around. AI has been around forever.
Why don't you regulate the bloody air?
From couponing.
Let's go regulate the air, Jacoby.
Heck, again, how many people use Siri? How many people use Bing? How many people use Google search? How many people
play on chess.com? They don't regulate chess.com. They don't have to.
You're playing AI
government doesn't
still.
have to regulate anything. The government needs to stay out of their
Well, hold
regulation.
on a second.
No, it
hold on a
needs
second.
to
Hold on a second.
Needs to regulate.
Hold on. I got a question to ask both you and Sasha. And it's a very serious question. We have a very popular show. We'll be recording it later. It airs on Saturday. Ken Regan is a master at chess. He's playing a game, and that game is simulated. Is that not AI, what he's doing and everything?
Yep.
Because every time I watch that game that y'all are taping on Saturdays for the chess show, he is showing literally the moves that were going on, and the computer is showing the moves. That is AI to Joey's point. So we're using AI in a show that you're not.
Yeah, but it's a harmless tool. It's like air. I'm using air. I'm using a keyboard. Oh boy, the keyboard's going to take over the world. By the way, the keyboard's going to be my next person that I'm going to talk to. Come on, it's not worthy of that conversation.
It is.
Okay?
It is
Oh
very
wait, there's
worthy
a
of that
mouse
conversation.
out here. This mouse
Everything.
is super important. Let's regulate it.
Nick, are you
Let's see
going
how big the
to
mouse can be.
are you going
Every
to
government
If you
official
drive,
is-
utilizes
are you
the
going
chip
to
that
put the
uses
keyboard
AI.
in your will?
I don't know. Nicole just joined in. She says, yes, it is. You just don't realize it.
No,
And she
Nicole.
says,
No,
fastest
Nicole.
it is ever moved is
Over.
right now.
Yep. It is
No, it's not
ridiculous
going
how
anywhere.
fast it moves right now. And it is ridiculous. It's only
Are
getting
you
more.
live in fantasy world. It's fantasy.
And Nicole said
You know-
that they are
you know,
trying
for
to.
the
It's already
people in
released.
the AI
Local market.
They
It's
are
not
on
going
the
anywhere
precipice
and
of
probably won't be
Disney
contained
World,
anytime soon.
spend your life in Disney World,
It-
and your life will be better.
They
Everything's
are on the
imagined.
precipice of actually having
Imagine
quantum
it.
computing. When quantum computing hits at a regular basis, add in AI on top of that,
It'll
and
be
now the
meaningless.
AI knows every outcome.
I just
already
told you,
on top.
Nick, we had a
One quick
Nick,
Way
question.
overrated.
Chatovi, quantum computer is still not there.
No,
Why?
it's on the way.
And they
It's
can't
on
answer
its
simple
way. Okay.
questions.
And
Yeah.
that way could take 500 years, maybe
no,
50.
it's closer
no,
than
no,
500
no.
years ago.
faster,
No.
faster. You're right, faster.
It
No,
could
my-
be
my-
next
my
year.
cousin-
It could be
Faster,
next
you're
month.
right. You're
Sasha,
right.
my
In
cousin's
5
actually
days.
working on warp
Okay, but
technology.
tell me, my question is this: why is there so much talk about quantum computing when it's not even there and nobody knows when it's going to be
Because-
there? Is that the same as artificial intelligence?
Why
It's the
do we
same as
talk
crypto?
about a
What is it all
hurricane
about?
that's 5 days away?
5 days.
Why do we talk about an earthquake that may happen a few 30,
Not 5,
10
it's
days
4.5.
away?
Tell me when
Why
you
do
get
we
your
talk
ticket
about-
on Delta
Why
to
do we talk
Alpha
about
Centauri,
Ukraine and Russia
then we
when
can
they're
talk about
fighting exactly at this one moment? It's because these
Yeah.
things are coming and we have to prepare for these things.
and
Quantum
people are
computing
going to
is
be
gonna
on
take over a
Jupiter
lot.
very shortly. They're going to be
Hey,
living in
Sa-
Jupiter.
Sasha,
Come
Sasha,
on,
Sasha,
Toby.
I got a quick question
People
for
aren't
you.
going to be living in
Sasha, I
Jupiter.
got a quick
and
question for
artificial
you. Hold a
intelligence.
second, Nick. I got a quick question for you and for Nick. Because if I remember correctly, I've been fortunate so far, knock on wood, if there was any wood nearby and everything. But if I remember correctly, both you had family members, we won't say which family members, but you had family members that were recently had medical situations and all in that situation. I know that Nick had family members that had medical situations and everything. I want to say that AI was actually used in some of those medical procedures because I know a lot of doctors use
Check this
AI.
out.
A
Am I not
mouse
right,
was
Jacoby?
used in that procedure. A mouse was
Here's-
used.
here's-
For what, Mark?
Think about
Who cares?
this. Think about this. So
It's
just
good.
as I brought up how the chariot no longer is used anymore. Chariot died off. The horse and buggy died off as soon as that technology improved. Then you got the different cars that died off because that technology improved. What happens, and this is why we think about the future, Sasha, what happens when we become the old technology?
Terminator will be here, and they're going to terminate the world. Come on, Toby. You're living in movies.
It is not. Think
Jacoby,
about it. If
What's going to happen when I get on my round trip ticket to Alpha Centauri and back? That's 4.
Again, that's jet propulsion. I got
Million light years
ChatGPT
away.
that can come up with solutions right here.
Come on.
That even tells you.
Hey, Jacoby, I'm really worried about my trips to other planets and back. That's the thing that's bothering me. Oh, wait a minute. It's not going to happen during my lifetime. But
You
people
never
like you
know.
are going to worry about it.
Hey,
Well, what happens if I take a trip to
hey,
another
Nick,
planet?
Nick,
What
when's
am
the
I
last
going
time,
to do?
Nick,
Which
Nick,
hotel
Nick,
am I going to
hold on a
go to?
Bezos
second.
just went to
Nick,
outer
when was the
space.
last time you went on the plane?
Hotels.com
Nick, hold on a
answer
second.
my
When was the last
phone
time you went on a plane
on
ride?
planet Mars.
When was the
Oh,
last time
no,
you went
They
on a
have
plane
that
ride?
Mars planet,
Yeah,
that whole expedition to Mars where they're going to send people there to build a foundation on Mars. and they're going to see how people live for a little while and then go from there.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's not going to happen during lifetime. See, here's the sad part, Jacoby. You're going to be dead before two things happen. Number one, that you spend an evening in a hotel in Mars. Number two, you're going to be dead before Hotels.com figures out they got to answer the phone. Because
Hotels.com, that complaint that you're having to deal with bots.
If you have a complaint, file
check
it with
this
the
out.
CCA.
Oddly enough, the individual who you referenced earlier, dealing with Tesla, Elon Musk, who considers himself to be a genius but really isn't,
Because
his
he's not the guy
idea,
who created Tesla.
he didn't create anything. He just bought stuff.
He bought Tesla from two other guys who created it.
From two other dudes, yeah. So his idea when he bought Twitter, his new idea, the way he's going to try and stop bots because he's so frustrated with bots on Twitter, he said that he's going to start charging people money because he believes that that will stop bots. But he doesn't realize that bots still can charge an account and people can still have money going in for bots.
It'll slow down.
Hey, Nick, just really quick.
You
I know
can
we winding down,
move
but really
it.
quick
You
and
can
everything.
technology.
The last time you got on the plane, because you do quite a bit of traveling. I know Sasha does too, not as much as he used to, but you still do quite a bit of traveling. The last time you went on the plane, did you actually go up to the cockpit and study whether the pilot was flying the old-fashioned way or was he using AI? Did
Are you asking me or Sasha?
I'm asking you, Nick. When
Whether
you flew,
they
did you go and talk to the pilot? Did you watch the pilot fly the plane?
No, don't talk to a pilot. But the
And
thing
you didn't
is,
watch the pilot. You didn't watch the pilot fly the plane, did you?
The planes I fly on, they work. But guess what? I'm not like Jacoby. I didn't say, "Hey, are we going to be making a trip to Alpha Centauri?" Or how
He
about
didn't say
Alpha
Alpha Centauri. He never
Or-
said that.
Those
But
are
he said,
Alpha
but
Centauri.
Jacoby,
I
am
know
I
there's
not
been
correct in thinking that most of the pilots are flying using
I know
AI?
there's been
Jacoby, am I not correct in thinking most of the
like,
pilots are using AI when they're flying the planes?
It's the term
Come on,
autopilot.
different
That's what I thought.
landing a plane using computer-based programs than flying to bloody Mars. Okay. See, Jacoby thinks tomorrow we got to get prepared for flying to Mars. Tomorrow we got to be prepared and have hotels placed in all these little planets that have aliens on them that I've never seen.
It
I know there's
could also
aliens
come down to a class
there.
issue,
Jacoby, let me tell you
which is
something.
what I think
All the
Nicole was
aliens
bringing
you're
up.
gonna see
Because
are the
right now, the
Mexicans
ones that are
coming
going
up
to
from
fly the
Mexico.
planes
Oh,
and go to
no, now
Mars
you went there.
are the
You're not going to
billionaires.
see any aliens on
So
the
yeah,
planet. You got
Jacoby-
plenty
So
of
I already
Honduras.
explained the
Coming up.
mind-blowing thing about space and how it's wild to think about that light years away, there could be life there.
Dream
But we're not
about it.
seeing
That's
it
okay.
exactly
It's
at
not
this moment
reality.
that I'm looking over here.
Yeah.
Time travel. We're looking in the past when we look in the sky, and it's so wild to think about it.
Oh, good.
Also,
Well,
half the stuff that we this is even crazy. See, I do a lot of nerd stuff. I'm a big nerd, and so like Neil deGrasse Tyson and the whole Star Talk thing, I listen to that all the time. I'm just crazy because space is wild. Thinking about how much everything in space is moving. So technically, even though we feel like we're standing still on Earth, no, the Earth itself is moving through space as it's going around the sun. And this is wild. This is another wild thing to think about. Years from now, some of the stars that we see, we won't be able to see based on the pace that we are traveling in space. So when they see the viewable space area, that's only because the light travels a particular amount of speed, and it gets it gets to Earth. At some point, we will travel far enough away from a planet, or that planet or that star will travel far enough away from us where the light that it has will no longer reach us. So we will not be able to see it, but it'll still be there, which goes to show that much of the stuff that is out there, we still can't see. And then dark matter takes up most of the space that's out there than actual matter itself. So it's just wild. It's just, fun stuff.
Jacoby, everything what you just said and 75 cents will buy you a cup of coffee.
No,
Okay.
but
I'm not at
Sasha,
Starbucks.
Sasha, one of your
$5.
biggest, hold on a second, Sasha, one of your
$5
biggest investors
in
that you
Starbucks.
love and everything is very big on data intelligence and AI. I just looked it up. So I know that on your show, you oftentimes talk about Lululemon. And as when I typed up Lululemon and digital AI and generative AI, it's all kinds of articles came up because apparently that's how they built their base and everything in their athletic wear and everything. So they were actually using what Jacoby is talking about to create a stock that you have been bullish on for weeks now. I don't know if you're still bullish, but you were bullish for weeks and everything. So they were using that in their own technology and everything along those lines. So what do you got to say about that?
Well, this is a part of a technological process. There's nothing to do with artificial intelligence. It's a technological process that Lululemon developed with probably some internal help or maybe external help. It doesn't matter. If it works, and maybe they experimented a lot, and maybe it didn't work at first, but finally it did work, and they used it to their advantage to sell more clothes that is accepted by their customer base, and it shows up very well on the stock price. Stock prices are going higher and higher.
Sasha,
And it's
Sasha,
nothing to do with artificial
Sasha, they're partnering on a 20 million well-being AI project. So they are actually one of the leading partners on an AI project, Lululemon is, and they are definitely betting on
The
digital future with their
AI,
own.
in my opinion, stands for nothing, zero.
So they
Because
gave how much? 20 million away
absolutely
just to
nothing,
give it
because
away?
what's important is applications, and each company and its clients, they're working on different applications, anywhere from playing chess to flying to outer space, or just Lululemon manufacturing processor. So they're all independent processes, and some are well defined and developed. Some of them are not even defined at this moment, and they're working on it. But people thought, it's artificial intelligence. It's a magic word
Here's
that
the
describes
question.
everything. This is
Here's-
nonsense.
What is the stock market? When you're judging stocks, are you just crunching numbers
No,
to try and figure out a trajectory or a
No.
pathway that a stock may go up or down?
no,
Trying to predict?
no,
Is that what you're doing?
no.
What are you doing?
I became with a new formula of so-called common sense investing.
Are you crunching numbers with that common
No,
sense
I
thing?
don't, because if I
So
will
you just
start,
guess at a name?
no, what I do, I know what our number crunchers are looking for in stock. And when they know, when the pattern develops, I know that all people who know how to crunch the number, and artificial intelligence and all the bots and robots and whoever
So
they
you're
are, they're going to
crunching
react
numbers.
in a certain predictable way. And what I'm watching is to get that process underway, and it will be all done and over with. And I see how stock actually reacted to
So
all this.
Sasha,
Then I can take my position.
Sasha, you just made a long-winded diatribe on saying you crunch numbers to predict who crunches numbers.
No, I don't crunch numbers. I'm following the action of people who are crunching numbers. I make
Your actions are crunching numbers.
but I don't do that, because if I will start crunching numbers, I will become one of those robots and bots who are following certain painted
Again,
scenarios.
Sasha, you're doing everything you can to avoid saying you're crunching numbers based on what somebody else did to predict what this stock is going to do to crunch numbers.
No, what I'm doing is I'm watching the chart. Everything is in the chart. For
The
that,
numbers being crunched.
you don't need to crunch numbers. You need just one look at the
To
chart.
create that
That's
chart is to create the chart that you're
Go to
looking at.
yahoo.com and
crunch the
any
numbers?
chart you will see in a matter of a second, any chart of any stock. You will see it, it's right before you.
Hold
You
on.
don't have to crunch
Sasha,
anything.
Sasha, if you see that chart, is that chart based off of numbers being crunched?
No, it's good. There's no crunchy numbers. It's based on opening and closing of the stock.
Those are numbers.
Those are numbers.
But you don't have to crunch them. It's two numbers. Number one, stock
just
opens
said,
in the morning,
okay,
and number
Sasha,
two,
so
stock
you're
closes in the
basing-
evening. That's all.
So you're basing you're basing what you're doing off of numbers that had been crunched. You're given a number, then you look at these other numbers, crunching numbers, and you're predicting based off of what this person did, crunching numbers, to give you that original number. So you're following numbers. Everything.
Jacoby, speaking of following numbers, and I'm going to have to tease Sasha again because I'm going to his favorite stock. Lululemon is betting on an increasing digital future with its $500 million purchase of in-home fitness brand Mirror. As consumers sheltered at home, the yoga retailer has been one of the apparel winners during the pandemic, with net sales up 22% in its most recent quarter. Investments in digital growth include tapping its store instructors to conduct live video chats with customers at home. Athleisure retailer Lululemon Athletica Incorporated has built its success celebrating what it calls the sweat life, a lifestyle it describes as centered on physical fitness, mental well-being, and human connection. Lately, Lululemon executives have been talking about two kinds of sweat: digital sweat and physical sweat. Both are important to the future, they say, but right now they are betting heavily on the digital kind. So it sounds like your favorite company is going for digital AI and all along those lines. So I just had to bring that out there and teach you about it.
Okay, it's up 2.25% as of today, and obviously it will keep moving higher. It's a very good stock. They have very good sales. They have stores in almost any significant country in the world. So this is, I love that stock. Normally I'm buying it before the earning report because that's where you get the biggest bang for your money, because in case of positive report, it will jump severely, 20% or even more. And that happened to me already 3 times, and I think it will happen a couple more times. So I like that stock, I like that company, I like their products. Nothing to do with artificial intelligence. It's just common sense. If you like the company, you like its stock, you like its products, there is no artificial intelligence. It's common.
I used to like GameStop, and GameStop crashed.
GameStop? It's a loser's stock.
But I like. So
also
again,
losers
it's all about
love
numbers.
that stock.
It's all about
Yeah,
numbers, and it's all about what I just said. A lot of these companies are using AI in their own conversation,
about-
which is what I just brought up.
It's data. Data can be analyzed. And that's why, for example, in the medical field, they're using AI in the medical field. They said that AI was able to detect cancerous tumors at a higher rate than Mark. Please look it up. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I think they had done a study where
That's what I
AI
brought up
was able
earlier.
to-
I brought up the notion of AI, including
AI was able to detect.
in various surgeries, because it's not just. And I know that there are folks throughout the network, meaning by TV, that have had surgeries, and a lot of that is AI based.
Yeah. So we keep arguing that AI is useless. No, AI is very useful. AI is here to stay and only growing, and that's just the way it is. We can't.
So it's
think-
quantum computing is here to stay. Also, crypto is here to stay. Is it or not?
We're not even talking about crypto.
No, but
Crypto is something different. than AI.
guys, I have to leave now. I invite you to the investment show at 1:00, and we can discuss it further. Okay?
All right, well, we're going to wrap up the show, and it's definitely been a lively discussion and all along those lines. But I do know the investment show comes at 1:00, and we'll see what goes on in that space, because I know he's got Milan probably with you, as well as Jim Eid, and I don't know who else.
Jim is not going to make it today. He has to visit his mother. He's
Gotcha.
traveling. Yeah.
No problem. Well, we're going to wrap up the show and get ready to end, but we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of World Edition. And by the way, we've got somebody that's going to be talking about concentration camps on Monday. So I just confirmed that, because they're talking about the history of concentration camps as well as modern concentration camps. So he will be coming onto the show on Monday to talk about what's going on in those lanes and everything. And I'm landing up some other guests as well. But right now, we're getting ready to get on out of here.